please pay attention. On the top right-hand corner of your sheet, what do we need to write?
Name day 9.
The date.
Where that?
The date today is what? 8/21/13. Do that every time. This is 1.2 points, lines, and planes. In essence, a lot of what we're doing in this section, there's not going to be much figuring this or that out. There's not going to be much, hardly any computations to make. No 5 times 8 or anything like that. This section, for the most part, is mostly learning the language. Start learning the language of geometry. That's where most people have problems, is with the language of geometry. How do we, we're not going to say that point over there. We're not going to say that line over there, that segment over there, that angle over there. We're going to name it in a pretty efficient way. Okay, mathematicians are lazy. We don't have to write out a bunch of stuff, especially words. First thing we'll talk about is a point. First of all, we need to talk about what a point is. It's a location in space. That point right there. As hard as this is to visualize, in essence, it has no size. Okay? It's a specific itty bitty little point. Now, but of course, we're going to have to label it with something. Most of the time, we label with a dot. For example, I'll put a dot there. But then I need to be able to say, hey, this point over here, this point over there. So what if I had 2 dots? I don't want to just say the one on the left and the one on the right. I want to be more specific. So we use a dot and a capital print letter. What I mean by that is it's not cursive, it's not italicized. It's the first kind of letters you probably learned to write when you were a kid. This would be point A, capital A. This would be, I would label that point B. Maybe draw another one down here. Now, one thing to understand is when we write this down, if I ask you this question, before you'd even had this, if I had asked you the question, which is closer to A, B, or C? You'd probably think of what? The alphabet? Right? You'd be lucky and you'd be right, wouldn't you? But actually, when I'm speaking of geometry, when I say what is closer to A, B, or C, when I say a capital letter, and we'll write that statement down. What is closer to A, B, or C? And then I put a question mark. If you were in an English class, it'd be probably about the alphabet, wouldn't it? In a geometry class, it's very different. A capital A, I don't have to write the word point. When I read this, what is closer to, how you should read this in geometry, what is closer to point A, point B, or point C? Because anytime we say a print capital letter, what are we talking about? Point. Make sense? So we're not going to write the word point A. They may in some of the questions, but really they don't need to. Okay? So that's kind of, in other words, if I had never talked to you about the language of geometry, you'd think of English there, wouldn't you? And you'd probably think of the alphabet. Yes, sir. So that's important. Now, another thing that you need to realize is we don't always have to use a dot. Me, up here with me. What? Let's say I had two lines drawn right here. I had a dot put here and I made this E. I had a dot put here and I made this F. And then I wrote a G here. What I've actually drawn here is two lines, and then I've got some other things. It's important, remember, a point is a location, so it's important you know where I'm talking about. Is there any confusion where point E, F, and G are? But I didn't draw a dot for G. So where do you think I'm referring to? Where are the two lines what?
Intersect.
So we're not going to write more than we have to. If there's a situation that makes it obvious where the point is, we're not going to draw that dot. Does that make sense? You see why we didn't need to draw a dot here for G? But I needed to draw a dot for what? F and E. Okay? So if I drew a rectangle and wrote X, Y, Z, and W. I don't have to put them in alphabetical order, it's just the way they're done lots of times. Is there any confusion to where those points are?
No.
Where are the points?
On
Each corner, right? And I didn't draw one dot. So as you can see, there's exceptions to every rule, but for the most part, there's going to be a what? Dot, unless there's a figure and it has a corner or an intersection or something to that effect. But it's important that we understand that. Understand how we're going to label things. Like I said, that, if anything else, is the most important thing about this section. That's what we're teaching here. You're the language. Okay? Lines. Jake, lines. Go on forever and ever in both directions and have no thickness. Say, well, when I draw the line, there's a little bit of thickness there. Well, we have to draw it somehow, right? But in essence, it's represented to have no thickness. 2 points always make a distinct line. That's another fact. Think about it like this. If I have 2 points, what am I always going to be able to do with those 2 points?
Draw a line between.
Connect the what?
Connect to those.
Absolutely. Connect the dots. That's what that's saying. And there's only one straight line that I can connect the dots with there. I couldn't have really put that, my little straight edge any other way, could I?
No.
Okay? How do we label a line? points on the line with a line symbol, I'll call it, above the numbers, or above the letters. Now I'm gonna draw another point here. I'm gonna have to see there. Let's name this line in all the different ways you think you could. Guys, help me out.
A, B, B, C.
Now, here's the thing, and you guys may think I'm being picky, which I haven't told you this yet. I expected you to make this mistake. First of all, she said AB. This right here is incorrect. Can anybody tell me why? There's no symbol on the top of it. In essence, that symbol right there, this is how you would read this. If they write this in a question, you don't read that as AB. You read that as, that means the word line. Line, AB. So when I say, give me another way to name it, a correct answer would be to say line, that tells me to write that, BA, wouldn't it? Is that 2 points on the line with a line above it? Yes. Somebody give me another way to name it. Anyone? All I need is 2 points on the line.
CB.
Okay, so, but you would say to me what?
Yeah, line CB.
Line CB. And then you could do it the other way, couldn't you? And say line what?
B, C.
Anybody see any other ways to name it?
Line A, C.
Line AC, I heard. And then line what? CA. And that's all the different ways, right? Those are all a correct answer to that, asking me to name it. Believe it or not, though, there is another way to name a line. Now, I didn't have it written here, but sometimes you will see a cursive lowercase letter on the end of a line. They don't have to be always on the end or somewhere around the line. In other words, like right here. Everybody look up here. Right by this arrow, if they wrote that, is that a cursive L?
Yes.
So another way to name this would just be to call it L. Line L. The fact that it's cursive tells you, basically says the word line, and the actual lowercase letter tells which one you're talking about.
Also, do you wanna have to put the line above it?
No, that's all you gotta put. The fact that it's cursive and lowercase tells you it's a
Line?
line. So here's another thing you've never dealt with before, you know what I mean, that you're gonna have to know the language. So, you know, I'm asking you a question, hey, do you guys see L up there? You probably say, yeah, I see the letter L. You know what I'm saying to you? Do you see line L up there? That's how you should read it when you see this. You should say the word line before it. It'll help you know what you're talking about. Okay? A big part of getting better at this is reading it in your mind correctly when you read the problem. Right, Courtney? Wouldn't you agree? Okay, wake up. Unfortunately, when we're talking about a language and how to do things, this probably isn't the most exciting section you'll ever have in geometry. Oh, but trust me, they get exciting. Make sure we get that written down. Then we will move on to planes.
Yeah.
Plane is a flat surface that extends infinitely and has no thickness. In essence, it's only two dimensions. Now we want to froze it, there it is. Plane is a flat surface that extends infinitely and has no thickness. That chalkboard, that wall, you can visualize that as a plane. If you visualized each end of it going on for what?
Ever.
Forever and ever. Infinitely. We used forever and ever in the last definition, they used infinitely here, so you can realize it's the same thing. Top of this book, or you think of this book, you know, that's a plane. Goes infinitely. Right? Now, but it's only actually in two dimensions. Okay? Up and down is one dimension, left and right is another one. It's a two-dimensional figure. When I write on this piece of paper I'm writing on a two-dimensional space. So what's hard, sometimes we've got to write something in 3 dimensions on a two-dimensional space. So you kind of, you know how you have to slant things and to visualize 3 dimensions. How do we draw a plane or a picture of a plane? You'll see basically what you'll later learn is they'll draw it like a parallelogram.
Okay, good.
Okay? That's what you'll see a plane look like. Of course, I'm not talking about a flying plane. I'm talking about a plane in geometry. How you'll see it labeled. And this is how you sometimes draw it in 3 dimensions, show 3 dimensions without actually having it. Tell me, by that picture, which points are in that plane?
A, B,
A,
C.
B, and C.
A, B, and C. I know I said it goes on forever and ever, but when they draw it down here below it like this D is supposed to represent being what?
Under it.
Under it, right. It's like the plane's here and D's down here. Where's F? Is it above it?
Above it.
Above it. Where's E?
Below
It's
it.
below it. And isn't that a line? I drew a line that's supposed to go down to here, intersected at one little spot. Oops. And then go back down, right? Does everybody understand what that picture? So I tried to draw something in 3 dimensions on a what? 2-dimensional surface. Hence why I'm explaining it can be a little hard to visualize at first. Okay? Which brings us to how we label planes. We do it in there's 2 possible ways. Label or name. We do it with 3 non-collinear points on the plane. We'll talk about what non-collinear is in just a second. It means they're not on the same line. Collinear means that all 3 points are on the same line. So that's all we do. So, example, how could I name this this plane? Anybody? I could name it A, B, C, couldn't I? And you don't have to write the word plane. Say, well, believe it or not, that's kind of how we'll label triangles, but you know how we'll label a triangle? We'll put a little triangle in front of it to say triangle ABC. So when I say ABC, I'm talking about a plane. Okay? How else could I name it? I just need 3 non-collinear points.
CBA.
BCA, right? CBA,
ACB.
BAC, ACB, so on and so on, right? Maybe a couple more, but there's no reason really getting into it. All of these are right. For all of these correct. However, there's one other way you'll see them label them, and or you will see a uppercase cursive letter or italicized. You'll be able to tell it's different than the others. Now, me, I'm personally not a big fan of this, but here's the deal. When you see it in the book, you'll know it's different. However, when I write it up here, like if I was to do that, you know, I just make it kind of squiggly, and it's not even hardly legible. It's supposed to be an uppercase kind of fancy K. We'll try it again. See, it's kind of,
Is that an X?
that's a K. It's an uppercase K. Well, like I said, the book will do a much better job of, in fact, let's look at the book. Look at page 14.
Okay. 13.
Look where it talks about planes. Is it obvious that's a cursive or italicized M there?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, we've talked about how we name them. Next, I need to talk about collinear and coplanar. Collinear are 3 or more points that lie on the same line. So if I was to draw an example of that, I'd draw a line here, right? A, B, C, D. How many points there are collinear? And then I drew another dot down here, E. Are points B, C, D collinear?
Yep.
Would everyone agree with that?
Yep.
How about A, C, D? How about C, D, E?
No.
They are not collinear, are they? Coplanar? Four or more points on the same plane. What do you think non-collinear means?
Opposite.
3 points that are what?
They're
Not on the same line. Non-coplanar, 3 points that are what? Not on this, or four more points that are not on the same plane. Okay?
What does that say?
4 or more. On the same plane. I'm going through this slow because, like I said, this is important. Last thing we're going to talk about, the intersections. First, what's the intersection of the line going to be? When two lines intersect, what's it going to be? What do we call that thing? What do you think we call that? No? We'll draw another one. Each time, what's made? I'll give you a hint. Look at when we define point, and look at the two lines I draw it intersecting. Where did they intersect at? A point. Point G, right? So guess what the intersection of a line of, I shouldn't say a line, that would be incorrect, because you can't have one line intersecting, can you? Intersection of two lines is always a what? A point. How about an intersection of two planes? Now this is the one I want you to think about. What I would like you guys to do is I want you to draw that. Draw the intersection of two planes and see if you can figure out what it would be. And I'm going to draw mine here with it muted, and then we'll compare. And then see if you can draw a picture of two planes intersecting. See how you do. I want to see how you guys do it. It's okay if you just try it and leave some space to correct it if it's kind of wrong. It's okay to do things wrong. Come on. Have you drawn your two planes yet?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Huh?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, but have you drawn your two planes yet? I didn't ask if you're asleep. You answered me, I know you're not asleep. When you say, Coach, yes, Coach, is enough to say, what? Be efficient, like we're talking about in math. Yes, Coach says what? One, you're not asleep because you answered me, right?
Sir.
Unless you're talking to your sleep very conveniently, which is very doubtful. And personally, don't feel bad if you don't draw a great picture of this. There's my picture of two planes intersecting.
Oh.
It's
Now, I want you to think about where they intersect.
4 points?
Now, this dot means it's behind this one. That's what the dots mean.
Oh.
To where if you colored it in, you couldn't see that portion. If you think about it, don't they kind of meet all right here?
Yep.
Would everyone agree with that?
Yeah.
Because I can't, of course, because I have this piece of paper and this piece of paper. When they come together, they meet all along this edge, don't they? In fact, the best way for you to think about it is when the planes meet, it's at an edge, isn't it? Look at your book. Isn't this a plane? This a plane, this a plane, this a plane, this a plane? Aren't they meeting at edges?
Yeah.
That's their intersection. Well, what if this edge went on forever and ever that way and ever forever that way? What would that be called? It goes on forever and ever this direction, does it not? It goes on forever and ever this direction, because so does the plane, right? So we would call this a what? Line. So guess what the intersection of two planes will always be? A line. That's the one, everybody knows that the intersection of two lines, they intersect at a point. Planes intersect at a line. So when they ask you what's the intersection of these two planes, if you put a point, is there any way that's right? No. The answer's a line. Okay, your assignment. I know I took a long time doing that. We'll do these worksheets, examples of the worksheets. We'll do them tomorrow.